The 6th episode of The Mandalorian's 2nd season, Chapter 14, The Tragedy, was an action-packed installment sure to please Boba Fett fans, and as always, there were plenty of Easter eggs tucked away in the margins. Here are a few you may have missed. Teased at the beginning of The Mandalorian's 2nd season, Chapter 14 finally brought Boba Fett back to the forefront of the Star Wars universe in grand fashion. He not only reclaimed his armor, but also took the fight to a platoon of hapless stormtroopers, reminding everyone why he's considered the most ruthless bounty hunter in the galaxy. Still, while this wasn't an especially big return for Boba Fett, one couldn't help but notice how the memory of his father, Jango Fett, dominated much of his screen time. This is evident first when Mando questions him on his Mandalorian heritage. Boba Fett replies, "I'm a simple man, making his way through the galaxy, like my father before me." Fans of Attack of the Clones know that this is reminiscent of a conversation that Jango had with Obi-Wan, where he said, "I'm just a simple man, trying to make my way in the universe." Additionally, Boba mentions that, much like his ship, Slave One, his famed armor set is a hand-me-down, once belonging to his father. Fett also explains to Mando that, contrary to popular belief, Jango didn't steal it. Rather, he earned it years ago during his days as a foundling. Boba says his father Jango even served during the Mandalorian Civil Wars, an event alluded to now and again in the Clone Wars animated series. The conflict was a reason for the divide between Satine Kryze of Mandalore and Governor Pre Vizsla of Concordia. After Mando recovers his Beskar spear, Boba Fett says he wants Mando to take a look at something, then presses a spot on his armor just above his wrist. A sequence of text written in the Mandalorian language flashes into the air. Boba explains that's his chain code, which has been encoded into the armor for 25 years. The audio description on Disney Plus calls it a lineage tree. As Boba points out, the code mentions both him and his father. But what about the other lines? Star Wars fans online made quick work of translating the chain code into English. It's incomplete, but some of it makes sense. From left to right, it reads, "Foundling, took into the year the Concord Dawn, mentor Jast, father Fett Boba Fett." But what does all that mean? First mentioned in the Clone Wars and first appearing in Rebels, Concord Dawn is an Outer Rim Territories planet. Led by Fen Rao, Mandalorian protectors ruled Concord Dawn in the Age of the Empire. On Concord Dawn, the Empire crossed paths with Rao and fellow Mandalorian warrior Sabine Wren, who gave the Darksaber to Bo-Katan before it somehow ended up in Moff Gideon's hands. Additionally, Concord Dawn was the home planet of Rako Hardeen, a bounty hunter known as the Marksman of Concord Dawn, who once tried to assassinate Obi-Wan in an episode of the Clone Wars. Concord Dawn is also allegedly where Jango Fett himself was born, according to the canon reference book Star Wars: The Complete Visual Dictionary, New Edition. The mentor Jast part of the lineage tree is likely a reference to Jaster Muriel, a Mandalorian warrior also born on Concord Dawn, and an important figure to the Fett family in Legends canon. Muriel first appeared in the comic Jango Fett Open Seasons in 2002. Initially serving as a journeyman protector, a low-level cop essentially, Muriel wound up killing a corrupt high-ranking officer, driven by his unshakable morals. For this, he was exiled from Concord Dawn, and eventually joined the Mandalorians. Muriel later rose in the ranks to become the sole leader of the Mandalorian people. He established the Mandalorian Honor Code, resulting in tension from the new Mandalorian group and the Death Watch splinter terrorist group, led by the vicious Tor Vizsla. When war erupted, Muriel headed back to Concord Dawn, where he saved an orphaned Jango Fett from a Death Watch attack. Muriel became Jango's adoptive father and mentor, but was killed 6 years later by Vizsla. Jango later avenged Muriel's death, then rose to become the new leader of the Mandalorian people. There were a few minor Easter eggs hidden in Chapter 14 worth mentioning. Boba Fett says that the appearance of Moff Gideon's light cruiser isn't a spice stream, a reference to spice, the most popular illicit substance in the Star Wars universe. First mentioned way back in A New Hope, the drug is a staple in Star Wars stories, and a pivotal part of Solo was even set in a spice mine. Blue butterfly-like insects similar to the one flying near Grogu appeared on Endor in the Battlefront video game series, and a slightly different blue species appeared in the Clone Wars. The E-Web heavy repeating blaster used by the stormtroopers in this episode, before it was crushed by a Raiders of the Lost Ark-style runaway boulder, first appeared in The Empire Strikes Back at the Battle of Hoth. And finally, the design of those Dark Troopers sure called to mind Tony Stark's Iron Man armor, especially while in flight. This makes sense, of course, considering Iron Man director and Happy Hogan portrayer Jon Favreau is the showrunner for The Mandalorian. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about The Mandalorian are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.